I heard every word, Michael. Every single word. That was the moment Maggie Collins' world shattered and something fierce awoke inside her. One forgotten click after a phone call turned into the crack that exposed betrayal buried beneath smiles and Sunday visits. From the other end of the line, she heard her own son and daughter-in-law calmly planning to take everything she owned, her house, her freedom, even her dignity, while convincing themselves it was for her own good. But Maggie wasn't the fragile old woman they imagined. What they didn't know was that she had spent a lifetime surviving storms far worse than greed. And this time she was about to teach them the lesson of their lives. Would you have stayed quiet to plan your revenge or confronted them right away? Stay with me, because what happens next will leave you speechless. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon in Portland, Oregon, the kind of afternoon where even the ticking of the kitchen clock feels too loud. The clock read 3:30 p.m. when Margaret Collins, a 75-year-old widow, decided to call her middle son Michael. Ever since her husband Richard had passed away, Michael had been the one checking in the most. "Hey, Mom," he answered after a few rings, his voice warm, familiar. "How are you feeling today?" "Did you take your meds?" "I did, sweetheart," she replied softly. "I just wanted to hear your voice." Michael chuckled. "I was just thinking about you. We were wondering if you've given any thought to Sunny Meadows, that senior residence I told you about. They've got great care and activities." Margaret smiled faintly, though her chest tightened. "That again. Honey, I've told you. I'm fine here. This is the house your father and I built together. It's my home." "I know, Mom," he sighed. "But we worry about you. You live alone. You have your diabetes, your blood pressure." "Michael," she interrupted gently, "I'm not helpless. I've got Mrs. Jenkins cleaning twice a week, Dr. Miller checking on me every month, and you kids calling all the time. I'm fine." He paused. "All right, Mom. We'll talk later." "Okay, I've got to finish some work." "Love you." "Love you too, darling." She waited for the familiar click, the sound that said the call was over, but it never came. Instead, she heard footsteps, then a door creaking, and then a woman's voice, bright, sharp, unmistakably Lauren's, Michael's wife. "So did you finish talking to the old lady?" Margaret froze, the phone pressed to her ear like a lifeline. "Yes," Michael's voice came quieter. "She's still stubborn. Doesn't want to leave the house." Lauren scoffed. "Of course not. But that house, Michael, do you realize how much it's worth now? With that big backyard and the new development nearby, we could easily get over 800 grand for it." Her words sliced through Margaret like glass. Her home, where she lived with Richard for 40 years, where her children took their first steps, where every photograph on the wall whispered a memory, was being reduced to a real estate figure. "Lauren," Michael said uneasily, "I can't just kick her out." "No one's saying that," she replied smoothly. "We'll convince her it's for her safety. She's 75, living alone, forgetful sometimes. What if she leaves the stove on? What if she falls?" Margaret's heart raced. She gripped the receiver tighter. That's not true, she thought. She'd never left the stove on, never fallen, never once asked them for money or help. Lauren continued, her tone turning cold and calculating. "If we get her into Sunny Meadows, you'll have legal control anyway. You still have that power of attorney, right?" "Yes, but that's only for emergencies," Michael muttered. Lauren's voice dropped to a whisper, but Margaret caught every word. "Then we'll make it one. Dr. Evans already told me it's easy to get a mental competency report for seniors. A little confusion, a few memory lapses, they'll sign off. Once that's done, you make the decisions." Silence. Then Michael said quietly, "That feels wrong." "It's practical," Lauren snapped. "Think about it. With the money from the house, we could finally buy something bigger. The kids would have their own rooms, maybe even a pool." "You've worked hard, Michael. Don't you deserve that?" Margaret's breath caught. Her son, the boy she'd once sung lullabies to, the boy who used to bring her wildflowers from the yard, was being led step by step into betraying her. She heard Lauren's voice again, calm and certain. "It's for her good, too. She'll be surrounded by people her age. She won't be lonely. Everybody wins." "Everybody but me," Margaret whispered in her heart. She listened as Lauren's footsteps faded. Michael sighed. "I guess you're right. Maybe it's for the best." That was the moment something inside Margaret broke. Her body trembled. Not from fear, but from a cold, simmering anger. She'd buried a husband, raised 3 children, survived loneliness and age. She was not about to be pushed aside like an old chair taking up space. For a long time, she sat still, staring out the kitchen window at the lemon tree Richard had planted decades ago. Its yellow fruit glowed against the late afternoon, light proof of how things endured, even when tended by hands now gone. Finally, she whispered, "You underestimated me, Michael. Both of you did." She rose from her chair, steady, determined. In her late husband's old study, she found his worn leather notebook, the one filled with numbers, contacts, and notes he'd once guarded so carefully. She opened it and began making calls. First, Dr. James Miller, her doctor for over 10 years. "Doctor, I need you to run some tests," she said. "Cognitive, neurological, whatever it takes to prove I'm fully competent." He hesitated. "Mrs. Collins, are you all right?" "I will be," she said. "But I need documentation, official, signed, sealed. Tomorrow morning." Next, she called Mr. Alan Brooks, the family lawyer. "Alan, I need an urgent appointment. It's about the power of attorney Richard and I signed years ago, and I need a new will drafted immediately." Finally, she called her eldest son, David, in Seattle. When she told him everything she'd overheard, his disbelief turned to fury. "Mom, that's God, that's disgusting. You can't face this alone." "I have to," she replied calmly. "But I'll need your support quietly." And then she called her daughter Emily in Boston. Her reaction was sharper, colder. "How dare they? You took care of them, of their kids. And now they want to lock you away for your house." "No, Mom. We won't let that happen." Margaret smiled through tears. "I know, sweetheart, but don't act yet. Let me handle this my way." That night she barely slept. The shadows of her bedroom stretched long and thin, like ghosts of memories that refused to fade. But under that blanket of betrayal, something powerful was waking, a kind of strength she hadn't felt in years. By morning, Maggie Collins had a plan, and this time she wasn't going to be anyone's fragile old lady. The next morning, the sun hadn't even climbed over the Portland Hills when Maggie Collins was already dressed in her navy suit, the one she used to wear to Richard's business dinners decades ago. It made her feel strong again, sharp like the woman she once was, before people started calling her sweet old lady. At exactly 8, Dr. James Miller greeted her in his clinic. He knew her well. He'd watched her manage diabetes and high blood pressure with the same discipline she'd once managed 3 kids and a mortgage. "Mrs. Collins," he said, frowning gently, "what's this about proving you're sane? You don't have to prove that to anyone." "Oh, but I do," she answered quietly. "Not for me, for the record." 2 hours of cognitive tests, memory exercises, and neurological checks later, Dr. Miller handed her a folder. "You're as sharp as ever, Maggie. This report says you're fully competent, mentally, emotionally, legally." "Perfect," she said. "Now I just need one more thing time." By 2 p.m., she was sitting across from Mr. Alan Brooks, her family lawyer. His silver hair gleamed under the office lights as he listened silently to everything the overheard call, the plan, the lies. His eyes darkened. "What they're attempting," he said finally, "is elder abuse and potential fraud. But you've got something rare, Maggie, proof, and time to strike first." "I don't want to destroy them," she said. "I just want to make sure they can never destroy me." Mr. Brooks smiled, slow and knowing. "Then let's make this airtight. We'll revoke Michael's power of attorney today, create a new will tomorrow, and a trust to protect your assets permanently. Oh, and we'll add a clause. Any child who tries to declare you incompetent or force you to sell your home loses their inheritance automatically." Maggie felt something ignite in her chest, not anger now, but power. Do it. By Thursday, everything was ready, but she wanted one final touch. When Michael called that evening, pretending nothing had happened, his voice was smooth, careful. "Hey, Mom, how are you? Lauren and I were thinking of bringing the kids over this weekend. Maybe we could, talk about your living situation." Maggie smiled into the phone. "That's wonderful, dear. I've been thinking a lot about it myself. You might be right. It's time to make some changes." The hesitation in his voice was almost comical. "Really, you're open to Sunny Meadows?" "Maybe," she said softly. "Why don't you come Saturday afternoon? We can talk it through." "Oh, and I've invited a family advisor to help me organize everything properly." "An advisor?" "Yes," she said sweetly. "A professional, to make sure I make the right decision." Michael hesitated, then agreed. He had no idea he'd just walked into his mother's trap. Saturday arrived bright and clear. Maggie spent the morning polishing every corner of the house. The old oak table gleamed, the lemon tree outside shimmered with sunlight. She filled the air with the smell of baked apple pie, Richard's favorite. Everything looked warm, welcoming, harmless. At 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. Michael, Lauren, and their 2 kids stood there smiling too wide. "Mom, you look amazing," Lauren said, feigning delight. "Thank you, dear. Come in. I made pie." The meal was cheerful at first, too cheerful. Lauren kept complimenting the house, how beautiful it still looked, how it must be so hard keeping it up all by yourself. Michael nodded along, occasionally dropping lines like, "You deserve comfort, Mom." Sunny Meadows has 24-hour care. Maggie listened politely, her eyes calm, her heart steady. Then as coffee was poured, she said softly, "You know you're right. This house is too big, and I do think it's time we put things in order. That's why I asked Mr. Brooks to come by." Both Michael and Lauren froze mid-sip. The lawyer, Lauren, asked, her voice thin. "Yes. Oh, and he's bringing someone else, a notary, to make it official." At exactly 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang again. Mr. Brooks stepped in, followed by a man in a dark suit carrying a briefcase. "Good afternoon," he said, shaking hands warmly. "I'm Mr. Alan Brooks, legal counsel for Mrs. Collins. This is Mr. Jeff Peterson, notary public." Lauren's smile cracked. Michael's knuckles tightened around his coffee mug. "Mom," he began carefully. "What's all this about?" Maggie folded her hands. "Just some paperwork. I want to make sure my future and this home are handled properly." Mr. Brooks opened his folder and began. "First, let me confirm Mrs. Collins has officially revoked the power of attorney previously granted to her son, Michael Collins." Silence. Lauren blinked. "Revoked what?" Why? Maggie turned her gaze on her son. "Because I heard everything, Michael. Tuesday afternoon. You forgot to hang up." The color drained from his face. "Mom, I heard you and Lauren." She continued, her voice trembling slightly but steady. "Every word, every plan, every lie about my mind, my health, my home. You were going to take it all from me," Lauren stammered. "Maggie, that's not what you think." "Oh, really?" Maggie's tone sharpened. "You called me the old lady. You discussed how much my home could sell, for how many years I might have left. How easy it would be to make a doctor declare me unfit." Lauren's face went white. "We were just worried about you." "No," Maggie said, her eyes glinting. "You were worried about losing an opportunity." Michael sank into his chair, covering his face with his hands. "Mom, I swear I didn't mean for it to go that far." Mr. Brooks spoke up. "Let me make something clear. As of this moment, Mrs. Collins retains full legal control of all her assets. Any attempt to interfere will constitute elder fraud and will be prosecuted." Lauren's voice shook. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious," Maggie replied, her calmness sharper than anger. "I've also updated my will. Any child or spouse who tries to have me declared incompetent or sell my home against my wishes will be completely disinherited." The notary began reading the new clauses aloud, his voice echoing through the kitchen. Each word landed like a hammer. Lauren's hands trembled. Michael's lips quivered as tears welled in his eyes. "Maggie, please," he said, voice breaking. "I made a mistake. I let her talk me into it. I swear I would have never gone through with it." Maggie's face softened for the briefest moment. "You were my son long before she was your wife, Michael, and yet you chose her voice over your conscience." Lauren's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of shame, not innocence. "You're right," she whispered. "I don't have an excuse." Maggie stood up, the years seeming to fall away from her shoulders. "There's nothing more to discuss. Mr. Brooks, please file everything first thing Monday." He nodded, already in motion. Michael rose defeated. "Mom, is there any way back from this?" Maggie looked at him for a long, painful second. "Forgiveness is possible," she said softly. "But trust that takes years, and you've just started at zero." When they left, the house felt lighter, as though the walls themselves exhaled relief. She stood by the window, watching her son's car disappear down the street. The lemon tree outside swayed gently in the wind, its branches glinting gold under the evening sun. For the first time in months, Maggie smiled. Not the fragile smile of an old widow, but the smile of a woman who had just reclaimed her life. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. Would you have let them back into your life after what they did? Do you think Maggie's plan was too harsh or exactly what they deserved? And tell me this, if you were in her place, could you ever trust your child again? In the weeks that followed that unforgettable Saturday, the Collins family changed. The silence between Maggie and her son Michael was heavy, but it wasn't the kind that destroys it, was the kind that forces people to face what they've done. Maggie kept her distance, yet she didn't shut him out completely. She knew anger could protect her for a moment, but forgiveness, that was what would heal her for a lifetime. Still, she needed proof, not promises. Every Sunday, Michael called. Sometimes she didn't answer. Sometimes she did, but only for a few minutes. And when she spoke, her words were calm, but firm, like a woman who had walked through fire and come out standing taller. Lauren didn't call at all, not for weeks, but Maggie didn't miss her voice. What she did miss was the laughter of her grandchildren, Ethan and Lily, the sound of small feet running through the kitchen, the little hands tugging at her apron. So when Michael finally asked Mom, "Can I bring the kids over?" Just for a short visit, she said yes. That Sunday when the doorbell rang, Maggie opened it to find Ethan holding a small bouquet of daisies. "Grandma," he said shyly, "these are from me and Lily." Her heart melted. "Thank you, sweetheart." Behind them stood Michael, his eyes tired, his face humbled. He didn't come empty-handed either. In his hand was a folded letter. "I wrote something for you," he said. Maggie didn't read it right away. Instead, she invited them in. The smell of apple pie filled the air again, just like it had the day everything changed. Ethan and Lily ran straight to the garden to play under the lemon tree. Michael stayed at the table, twisting his wedding ring nervously. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry," he began, "but that word feels too small for what I did. I was weak, Mom. I let greed and pressure blind me. Lauren and we've been seeing a counselor. We realized we were building a life that looked good on the outside but was rotten underneath." Maggie looked at him silently. She didn't need long speeches, she needed honesty, and for the first time in years she saw it in his eyes. "I never deserved the kindness you've shown me," he continued, voice shaking. "But if you ever give me a chance to earn your trust again, I'll spend the rest of my life trying." Maggie unfolded the letter. It was handwritten, shaky but heartfelt. In it, Michael described memories from his childhood, the first time he'd fallen off his bike, and she'd bandaged his knee the nights she stayed up, helping him study the warmth of home that no amount of money could buy. The final line made her throat tighten. "I forgot who you were, Mom, but now I remember." When she looked up, tears filled her eyes. "Michael," she whispered, "love isn't about perfection. It's about coming back honestly after you failed." He broke down, then leaning forward and hugging her tightly. For the first time in months, Maggie allowed herself to cry, not from anger, but from release. Days turned into weeks, and the house was filled once more with laughter. Lauren eventually gathered the courage to visit too. She came alone, holding a pie from a bakery Maggie loved. "I know I can't undo what I said," Lauren admitted, eyes wet. "But I want to be a better daughter-in-law than the woman you heard that day." Maggie studied her for a long moment before responding softly. "Lauren, what matters is that you came. We all make mistakes. It's what we do after that defines us." That afternoon, they sat together drinking tea under the lemon tree. For the first time, their conversation wasn't forced. They spoke of the children of life, of growing old gracefully, not in fear, but with gratitude. Months passed. Christmas arrived. The Collins home, still Maggie's home, was alive with joy again. David flew in from Seattle with his family. Emily came from Boston with her husband and 3 little ones. Michael and Lauren helped decorate the tree. Even Richard's old records played softly in the background, as though his spirit were smiling through the music. At dinner, Michael stood up, glass in hand. "I'd like to make a toast," he said, voice trembling. "To my mother, the strongest woman I've ever known. The woman who taught me that love isn't weakness, that forgiveness is power, and that a home is built not with money, but with heart." Everyone raised their glasses. Maggie smiled through tears, pride shining brighter than the Christmas lights. Later that night, when the guests had gone and the house grew quiet again, she sat by the window, gazing at the lemon tree Richard had planted. Its golden fruit glowed under the porch light like small suns in the dark. She whispered, "We did it, Richard." They learned. For a moment, she could almost hear his voice, the one she'd missed for so long, soft and steady. You never stopped teaching, Maggie. Her heart filled with peace. The pain had not vanished, but it had transformed into wisdom, into forgiveness, into strength. She realized something profound. Life doesn't always protect you from betrayal, but it gives you the chance to rise from it with grace. From that day on, Maggie became an advocate for senior independence in her community. She shared her story at local centers, helping others protect themselves legally and emotionally. People admired her courage, but she would always say the same thing: I didn't do it to fight my son. I did it to remind myself and him that love deserves respect. And slowly her home once again became what it had always been, a place of safety, laughter, and belonging. Sometimes when the grandchildren came over, they'd ask Grandma, "Is it true you once outsmarted everyone?" She'd smile, pretending to think. Maybe she'd say, "But the real victory isn't being clever, it's keeping your heart open." And every evening, as the sun sank behind the Oregon hills, Maggie would rock gently on her porch chair, whispering to herself, "This is peace. This is home." Now let me ask you, dear viewer, how did this story make you feel? Do you think Maggie was right to forgive her son and give him another chance? If you believe love and forgiveness can truly heal even the deepest betrayal, comment the number 100 below. And tell me, what country are you watching from? I'd love to know where our community is growing. If this story touched your heart,